And I didn't realize until I saw them. I've seen a bunch in real life, but how tiny they can be. There's some that's literally the size of an egg.
Yeah, usually people think these are very large vases.
Yeah.
And there are a few. In a British museum we found like this large porphyry and breccia. You just came back from Easter Island.
But they are not just heads, they are full-bodied statues. And they vary in size. You can get little baby ones, and you can get some, I think, 60 or 80 feet tall. They're huge. And the backs of them are intricately carved, or they were intricately carved originally. And the carvings, like the motifs, the iconography, it looks so similar to some of the stuff that's coming out of the ground in ancient Turkey.
Namely Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe.
Yes, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe. The brand new one that they found under someone's house. And it's a guy standing there, kind of holding his privates, and either side of him he's got two massive lions, which is really interesting because you see the same similar image in like Mesopotamia about 5,000 years later. It's like that same image of man in between two cats or two winged beasts or two. Yeah, it's that hand position because that's what I was really looking to investigate, because the hands are so stylized, so specific to that position. And like you can represent hands in many different ways. You know, you could have them up, cross, loads of different things. But they did that one.
Have you heard about the Kon Tiki Expedition? 1947, I guess. It's a Norwegian guy called Thor Heyerdahl.
Yeah.
Basically built a raft boat out of balsa wood and sailed from Peru to the Polynesian islands. And he made it on a primitive balsa wood. Thanks for tuning in. I would like to invite you to become a member of my YouTube channel. By joining, you will get exclusive perks, and it's a fantastic way to support the show and enjoy some cool benefits at the same time. For example, recently I traveled to the Petrie Museum in London to scan some pre-dynastic vases. Your support makes that possible. Check it out on my YouTube channel and click the join button. Thanks for considering.
To a toast.
Yes, toast. Jahannah, James, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure to be in the Petrie Museum today.
Oh no, it's so cool. Thank you.
I know you don't like it, sorry. They are not sponsoring me yet, so
No,
it's fine.
But manifest that for sure.
So, thanks for helping us out today in the Petrie Museum. We have been scanning some vases and cores and vessels. Which one do you prefer, vessel or vase?
What?
Or vase?
Oh, to say how to say?
Yeah.
We say vase.
Vase.
Yeah, vase. Yeah, dynastic vases. That's how we say it. Vessel, I guess.
You never say that?
No. If that's a bit, actually, no. Maybe vessel would be the better word for it, because vessel in my mind is something that like contains something, but you're not really sure what it's for. It's just a thing that contains stuff, which I guess is what a vase is, because we don't know that they're vases.
Yeah, we don't know what they were. We just assume they were vases.
Just assume, because they look a bit like...
But you use the vessel for boats as well, no?
Yes, because it's something that carries and contains and carries. So, yeah. But they're very cool. And I didn't realize until I saw them. I've seen a bunch in real life, but how tiny they can be. There's some that's literally the size of an egg, like not even 5 centimeters. That were my favorite ones, because just how you get it that small blew my mind away.
Yeah, usually people think these are very large vases.
Yeah.
And there are a few. In a British museum we found like this large porphyry and breccia. Breccia or breccia?
Breccia for what?
Breccia, like the material of the vase. How do you say it? Breccia?
Oh, I don't know.
As was the proper pronunciation of that word, because we were thinking about it, but we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The material, because I thought they were made of, is it like the stone?
Yeah, it's a stone. Usually it's reddish, and you have some other kind of crystals in this red material?
No, I don't know. I don't know that one. I'm getting a little bit better at recognizing stone now, and I'm like, okay, that's a granite, that's a diorite, that's a basalt. That's kind of all I know, actually.
How did you get into this topic?
So quick story. Pandemic happened, had lots of time. Got into Rogan, found Randall, found Graham, found Bright Insight, found Ben from Uncharted X. I was like, I used to make a dinner and sit and watch like Ben's 40-minute epic documentary videos and be like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I was just consuming all of this information and really doing a deep dive, specifically Atlantis. Atlantis was the thing that really caught my imagination, because I'd only ever really known Atlantis in reference to like the Disney movie or, like the all of the crazy lore around it, like flying cars and crystals and things like that. But then to see people actually investigate and research the potential of a civilization that was lost to history, but that wasn't, flying car, not that kind of high tech. Really interested in me, and I was like, let's go and research this. But if I'm going to do it, let's do it properly. Let's go to Egypt. So I took a massive gamble, and I literally spent my entire savings at the time to go on the trip to Egypt, because the Egypt tours, they're not cheap. They are very expensive, but they are like once in a lifetime, life-changing opportunities. So very, very glad that I did it. And I went with a bunch of questions for like my research, and then I kind of left with 100 more questions, and then just started making videos about it, because I love ancient history and I love spitballing on the mysteries and the whys and the hows and the what ifs. But my friends, immediate friends and family, aren't interested in this at all. So I was like, I need to find other people to chat this stuff with, because
it was very cool on the trip that you finally found those people.
You find your people,
the friends,
and you can,
in this topic.
You can spend hours just
talking.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I'm still in contact with people from the tours, because after going once in 2020, I went back and did 2 more tours of Egypt, a tour of ancient Turkey and Easter Island.
You just came back from Easter Island, right?
Yeah, that was amazing.
And what have you found there? I'm very interested in that topic.
Okay, the
How many hours do you have?
The short blurb version of Easter Island was the reason I went to Easter Island, because I was like, I really want to go and study the backs of the Moai, the statues that are on that, people sort of call them the dum-dums, or the heads that are buried in the ground.
Bodies.
But they are not just heads, they are full-bodied statues, and they vary in size. You can get little baby ones, and you can get some, I think 60 or 80 feet tall. They're huge, and the backs of them are intricately carved, or they were intricately carved originally, and the carvings, like the motifs, the iconography, it looks so similar to some of the stuff that's coming out of the ground in ancient Turkey.
Namely Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe?
Yes, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe. The brand new one that they found under someone's house.
Really?
Yeah, a guy was doing like he dug around his house to do some sort of like extension, and in the basement of his house, he discovered there's like 12,000-year-old site with the most amazing carvings, and it's a guy standing there kind of holding his privates, and either side of him he's got 2 massive lions, which is really interesting, because you see the same similar image in like Mesopotamia about 5,000 years later. It's like that same image of man in between 2 cats or 2 winged beasts or 2,
but also the hands are the same, like somehow this Easter Island statue hands and also the Göbekli Tepe hands should be
like Earth
potentially. Yeah.
It's that hand position, because that's what I was really looking to investigate, because the hands are so stylized, so specific to that position, and like you can represent hands in many different ways. You could have them up, cross, loads of different things, but they did that one, and so I just wanted to go study the carvings on the back, and then so I landed at Easter Island, got straight off the plane, 20 hours of flying, and then went straight on the tour, like dropped the bag straight out into the field to see the Moai. And I was a little bit disappointed because every Moai that we came across, and there's hundreds of them, was so eroded that there was no carvings to document anywhere on any of them. So then I said to the tour guide, I was like, where's the Moai with the carvings on the back? And he was like, oh, that one's in the British Museum. I was like, are you kidding? I just flew here 20 hours.
That's the only one they have found with the nice intact carving?
The ones in the ground have intact carvings, but they excavated them, documented them, but not, I don't think like that publicly. There's only a few images that are on like Google. And then they covered them back up and they reburied them. So there's an ongoing fight with Rapa Nui with excavation versus preservation. And so in the past, they excavated quite a lot and they did a lot of carbon dating. But now the sort of winning thing is leave it alone and put it back, leave it alone. Because there's so many Moai, personally, I think they should excavate maybe a few, like do a 5% some balance, because anything under the ground is going to be pristine, and the carvings would be pristine because they've been buried for so long.
How many Moais they have?
Nearly 1,000 so
Really?
far. Yeah. And the island's only 14 miles long. So it's a tiny island. You can drive around it in about 30 minutes. Which is really fun because if you're used to doing Turkey or Egypt tours, you're on a bus for hours and hours and hours. So it was quite a relief to have a 15-minute drive to a site. Then you get on the bus and it's 10 minutes to the next one. But there's Moai everywhere. There's Moai in situ on the original quarry, a Moai just dotted around the island, on the beaches. There's a Moai, like original ones at the hotel or around the shops. It's kind of crazy. But there are a lot of replica Moai as well mixed in there. So that's what, when you see images of Moai with the carved backs, a lot of the images online are replica Moai. So yeah, I was a bit gutted that I didn't get to see and document really well all of the carvings. But then it made me do a deep dive into like, okay, well, how old are the Moai? Like, where does the design come from? Like, who invented this design? Because it's so specific and so close. It shares like a kind of common ancestor with the stuff over in the Middle East. And deep diving, like carbon date wise, there really doesn't seem to be any evidence so far of anything older, any activity on the island older than around 900 AD. Which is only just over 1,000 years ago, which is a long time. But when you're looking at sites like Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe in Egypt, you're talking things like 5, 10, 12,000. So it's still quite young. It's a young ancient site. But they've looked at some of the papers of when they excavated around the ahus, which are the big stone kind of platform plinths that they put the Moai on.
Like a pedestal?
The pedestal, yeah. And they call them ahus. And they build them, and they excavated quite deeply around them, looking for signs of human activity and like a bone or a bit of fire charcoal. And yeah, the timelines that come out on the island of the use of the site, it's really not much older than about 1,000 years old. So on the one hand, I was like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence that the Moai were like ridiculously old. I think it's sort of safe to say that they were made in the time frame that we were told they were made. So they were apparently the Moai were started to be made around 1200 AD to 1600 AD, which makes some of the Moai only 400 years old. Again, I was like, whoa, that's really young. They are made of 4 different types of stone. There's basalt, and the one in the British Museum that's kept the carvings the longest is basalt, which is a reason why it's kept the carving, and also because it's been contained for like the last 200 years in a
under roof.
Yeah, under a roof, where the other ones have been out in the elements. And that particular one was a special one that was on a very special site, like right at the top of where the ancient volcano was. Like that was a special one. And I was asking the tour guides, and then they moved on to like volcanic tuff, which is probably like 80%, maybe more. They're made of this very soft volcanic rock. Easy to carve with stone. There's no like mystery on how they carve them.
I think there are no mystery how they. I think that's another mystery either, how they move them, right? So there were experimentations of moving those heavy rocks on wooden rollers and logs, or
they moved. They did an experiment where they walked a Moai using about, it was like 8 people, maybe 10 people, and they had 2 sets of ropes, and they walked the Moai kind of down. So they proved that you could do it at a certain weight on a flat space. But then I was having a little look at some of the Moai that have fallen over, and I was looking at the base, and I was like, it doesn't look like it's walked 10 miles. Like surely they would be eroded maybe at the sides if it's constantly bashing its hips. And it looked pretty flat, unless they walked them and then cut it again. That's an option. But so the history of the apart from the carbon dating, you really just have to rely on the Rapa Nui oral stories and the oral tradition, because they have a language, the Ronga language, but nobody knows what it says because it's undeciphered, which is so cool but also so annoying.
They're trying to use AI now.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken, they're trying to decipher it with AI. But I heard it from, I don't know from whom, but maybe that's another language. I don't know.
Hope so. Well, I hope so, because there are things that are like the oral stories are so fascinating, and I think they're almost more exciting. Like the origin story is that there was an island that was disappearing into the sea, and that's why the original Rapa Nui people had to like relocate, because someone was at the door.
Who is it? Did we order another pizza?
Amazing. Guys, we're just going to wait for this advertisement break.
Yeah, come in, no problem.
Please keep this in because it'll be great. This is great.
Sorry. Sorry about that. I have to get some stuff from here. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem.
Well, I love these apples as well. They're very good. Thank you.
This is fun though. This will get viewed. Oh wow, they really left some stuff. Oh.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Random. What did they even leave? It looked like a cage.
I think it was probably a bed frame, maybe, or...
It was a big, it looked like a metal cage that could fit a human.
You know, one guy was living there or sleeping there.
Yeah.
Chuck, you know Chuck?
Yeah. And he slept in the cupboard, like Harry Potter.
Okay.
Well, there we are. Wait, I was mid-sentence. What was I talking about? AI, Ranga, oral story. Oh, the oral origin story and how cool it is. Okay, so we're all good to go. Okay. Beep, beep. So the oral origin story of how people came to Rapa Nui was their original homeland, their island was disappearing, and they were having to relocate. And so there's a king called Hotamatua, and he sent out 7 scouts to find and locate the island. Either one of his key advisors, he either knew of the island or had dreamt of the island in a vision or like some sort of luteal dream state. And but basically the point is they knew the island was there, so they didn't go off in random directions and discover and be like, oh wow, look at this island. They knew of it, and he sent 7 scouts out. And again, I was like, 7? And obviously in like ancient lore, there's like the 7 sages and there's the 7. I was like, so there was 7, okay. And you were escaping a place that was sinking. And then so they went out and then they found or refound Rapa Nui, decided it was like, yeah, let's go live here. And then they went back, they brought back Hotumatua, and there was sort of 7 different tribes of the Rapa Nui people who were all coming together. And then this is cool. Then Hotumatua said, right, I'm going to send you back to the original island, and I want you to bring me back a Moai, because I want a Moai statue, and we're gonna recreate them in this new place. So they brought the Moai statue back across, and when I say back and forth, this is 3,000 miles away from like anywhere. It's so remote. It's just, it felt like being in Waterworld. It was sea as far as you could see. It was just ocean and terrifying amounts of ocean. So they managed to cross back and forth a couple of times, bring a Moai all the way across to Rapa Nui, and then when they were unloading it, they broke it, and were like, crap. It's like you had one job and they broke the Moai. So then they had to work out, the young stonemasons had to work out how to remake a Moai. And
do they have a broken one?
I mean, there's broken ones everywhere, but the origin story is that's how they were made. And I was like, why does everybody not know this? Because this is really important, because that means that the Moai sculpture as a tradition, as a design, was not created or made on Easter Island, Rapa Nui. It was brought to it to be recreated. So all the Moai that are there are Moai 2.0. And I was like, okay, so that's cool, because that makes sense that all of the Moai there, that's why they align with the carbon dates of a human activity on the island found thus far. Always leave space for, until they dig up whatever. But then it means that the design of it can go back into antiquity, and there could be some sort of sisterhood or brotherhood of like, where did that design come from? Where did the original one?
It seems to be like it has an origin somewhere.
I think it goes way further back than 1,000 years, and that makes sense in my head. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. And yeah, so that was my biggest takeaway from the island, was that it was definitely a 2.0 start again civilization.
Do they have volcanic rock on the island? So is it?
Yeah, there's a volcano.
But it's possible to mine the same type of rock there?
So yes, so the basalt, actually I didn't check whether the basalt was from the island, but the story of them bringing the Moai that broke, but there's also something else that they supposedly brought to the island that's still there, and it's a huge megalithic sphere stone, like the ones that are in Costa Rica and various other places in the world. And it's got weird magnetic properties. You used to be able to go right up to it. They've built a little kind of arena around it now because some idiot graffitied on it at some point. So they've stopped tourists going right the way up. But before, you could do like a cool compass trick, and you go near it and your compass goes crazy.
Yeah, we had the same experiment here in the UK. We visited Stonehenge with you, mm-hmm. and Avebury.
My favorite.
At Avebury, we had the same. I think Russ had
If it's the same people back again. Shout to them about, what do you want?
Jeez.
Sorry, I think I left my foot inside. I'm so sorry, guys, literally. I feel bad, sorry.
So people are just coming and going here and arriving and leaving. I don't know what's happening.
The train station, but Avebury.
I hope they just not robbers.
Yeah, I know. Imagine. They're just coming and stealing stuff. Oh, I left my plant. No, this is really funny. Keep it all in. Cut it at the beginning of the video, just me and you going.
Yeah, it's like bloopers.
Yeah, definitely.
So we visited Avebury, and Russ had a compass in his watch.
Uh-huh.
And when he approached the megalithic stone with the compass, it was going crazy. So maybe those rocks had also some kind of similar magnetic properties.
And
or maybe just the cars were passing by. I don't know.
Oh no, this stone is like, it's special, and it's got also the shape of it is like perfectly, well, maybe not perfect, we're gonna be careful with those words, but like it's very round, and there's nothing else like it on the island. And supposedly it was brought to the island again by Hotematua, and so they were bringing older artifacts, sacred artifacts, or functional sacred artifacts. They're bringing them from somewhere else. And yeah, the Moai, they said that the Moai, the purpose of the Moai is to represent a fallen ancestor, but they also are like a channel conduit for mana, this energy.
The same mana?
Well, yeah, and when they went mana, I was like, sorry, mana? As in like Ark of the Covenant, as in Middle Eastern manna from heaven mana? And they were like, yeah, mana. Like, I was like, okay, interesting that the word, that's another weird shared thing you have with the other side.
Same word in a different language.
Yeah, same word, different language.
Probably
for this
means kind of the similar thing.
And they say that and then if you ask the ancient Rapa Nui tradition, how did they move the Moai? They went, we didn't, the mana did. And that's how they say the statues walked with the mana. And I was like,
have you heard about the Kon Tiki Expedition?
No.
That was made in a 1947, I guess. So a Norwegian guy called Thor Heyerdahl basically built a raft boat out of balsa wood and sailed from Peru to the Polynesian islands. And he made it on a primitive balsa wood.
Yeah.
So with a crew of 6 people in total. So if I remember, I've seen that boat or raft in Oslo. It's huge. And they were 6 people on the boat. They have very limited skills of sailing, but they were using the currents. So the currents eventually lead them to the Polynesian islands.
100% people were going, I mean, in the story, they're going, oh, go back and fetch that. Or they were able to bring loads of people / massive heavy objects. Like, I think we've slightly underestimated the capabilities of people being able to sail places. And the second thing that was like the coolest thing that I found at Easter Island is my favorite thing on the site is a place called Vinapoo, which is the megalithic wall. There's nothing else like it on the island. It's just this one wall, which I think was either reused for an ahu or wasn't, just an original design of the ahu. And again, every other bit of stone on the island, for people who were like master stone movers and makers with all these moai popping out everywhere, their actual stone, they don't seem to share that same skill set with like the houses or the chicken coops. Everything, or the walls, everything is just kind of like pebbles sort of stacked. I mean, artfully, but they are not surviving today. Most of the stuff has been reconstructed because it's all fallen down. All the ahus actually have fallen down and been restacked, apart from Vinapoo, because it's megalithic, polygonal shapes. It looks exactly like the stuff that's in Cusco in Peru, and it just doesn't fit with the Polynesian almost like Neolithic stone stuff. So yeah, and then again also Vinapoo has like a hole on the very front of the wall, and apparently again you can't go too close to it anymore, but the hole has weird magnetic compass stuff around the whole of the front of the wall, and it's on a cliff edge and it faces out to the ocean, like right on the seafront. And yeah, so that was a really, really cool site. And I was thinking, this has to be older. Like, this has to be from the megalithic builders of the ancient people who were building stuff in Peru. But then when I looked at the carbon dating again of the site, it was coming out about 1200 AD. And I was like, so this movie is not that old, and I asked the tour guide, I was like, is this 100% Rapa Nui people built this? And he was like, we don't know who built it. I was like, okay. He goes, and the tour guide was kind of like, okay, look, I'll level with you. He goes, there is a oral story of visitors who came to Rapa Nui. And I'm not saying the visitors built the wall, but I'm saying we have a tradition of these visitors arriving, and we killed them. But but there was this, like, they have a story of like someone else was arrived on the shores. And then again, in my research, when I was like looking at home, someone sent me a paper saying that recently some of the museums, I think in France, who they have a lot of ancient Rapa Nui skeletal remains, and they approved them being like DNA tested to test the ancient DNA. And when it came back, it was 90% Polynesian, 10% Native American. And there was definitely a 10% of their ancient DNA was from South America. And they can, I don't know how they do this, but they can tell kind of when that would have occurred. And then that date, 1200 AD, that's when Rapa Nui started mixing with the South. And that's when Vinapoo, apparently, the activity of Vinapoo appeared. So I have a strong feeling that somebody with the ancient stone knowledge of like big megalithic walls from South America made it over.
Winapoo, I don't know, just Viracocha. It reminded me to Viracocha.
Vinapoo.
It's weird.
But yeah.
Or it's Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh. That, yeah, if you can't, Winnie the Pooh, that big wall. So that's cool. So now there's like, we have like DNA evidence that they were mixing around the same time that the Moai was started and the same time that this wall was. So I was like, okay, that's cool.
And the Moais were facing to the ocean or back
some
to the
of them are, some of them aren't. So some of them are facing out to the ocean, and then there's like a set of 7 that are facing in.
Mm-hmm.
The set of 7 that are facing in are on a beach, and it's the only beach on the island.
The same line? They are lined up?
They're in,
or in a circle?
No, they're in a line on an ahu. They're on like the platform, and they're looking in or out. And then you've got all the ones in the mountain, like the quarry. Sorry, I call it Moai Mountain because it's literally a mountain with Moai sticking up, and you can walk up around the mountain, and it's just Moai. And the they're buried up to their necks, but their bodies are so full. And I was like, but then how? Because the sediment doesn't make sense for the time frame, because you've got 20-30 feet of sediment, and supposedly the last ones were made in 1600, so you've got 400 years for 30 feet of sediment.
Do we have old pictures to compare? Or
well, we have the original sketches from the first Europeans to land in 1722, and they show the Moai in pretty much the exact same location as they are today in 1722. So the sediment hasn't risen in 250 years. But then the quarry was being used in the 1600s. So then my Sherlock skills was like, okay, so that means you've got 120 years for all that sediment. So that means it had to have happened kind of all quickly. So I think when they stopped quarrying them in 1600, I think there was a wet period now. So the last 1,000 years has been wetter than it was before. There was like dry periods on Easter Island and a wet period. And I think that because it's Moai Mountain, and I spoke to Randall Carlson about this, and he kind of explained to me in his way that, yeah, you can get like basically like slides of earth would come off them if it's with all the rain. So that makes more sense, rather than, because they're not purposefully buried like from human activity. It does kind of feel like there was in that weird 120 years when they stopped quarrying, or maybe that was why they stopped quarrying, because there was a huge
any active volcanoes in that time? Or it's not possible?
I think it's dormant. It's not like extinct volcano. I think it's, I believe, check that.
Because maybe the volcano ash or something could also bury it.
But that makes sense to me that it was either the reason why they stopped and they were like, the gods are saying no more or whatever, or they naturally stopped because of other reasons, and then there was lots of rain, and then there was a slide, and then nobody dug them out, and it's I could see how that, but it basically had to have happened between 1600 and 1722, because by 1722 they were up there. So it's gonna happen quick. So it's not years and years and years and years. Otherwise they'd be like 12,000 years old with that much, maybe more. So.
And do the local people know about this Göbekli Tepe T-pillar shape statues with the hands, or are they aware of this thing?
I think so. I don't think I directly asked. We had 2 tour guides, and one was the tour guide that was like, we do have a story of others coming. And then the other tour guide was like, I could sense he was like so proud and patriotic to the Rapa Nui people. And when I was, and I did press him a little bit about Winnie the Pooh. And I was like, is it possible? I was like, why this was made by somebody else? Because why does no other stone in the island look like this? Like, why, if you could do this, why would you stop? And he was like, no, I think this is the result of the evolution of our stonework. And I was like, I don't think it is.
There's the standard model on a lot of places.
Yeah, I was like, I think this is the input of some other design. But because the other like sacred houses or the houses where they sleep, they've got like a stone, but they're boat shaped, like they have kind of like stone markers for the sort of corner, and then the rest of it's made out of like wood and reeds, and they'd have to change like the thatching every week because obviously it would get dirty, it would fall down. And I was like, if you have the capacity to build something like Vinapoo, I'd live in that. Then the having to thatch my house every week.
Speaking of the reeds, maybe I'm wrong, but do they have the same kind of or type of reed that the Egyptians had or have? Because I think that was one of the reasons why Thor Heyerdahl, this Norwegian guy, started a new expedition called Ra, like the Egyptian sun god.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that one?
No.
I think it was happening in the 60s, a little bit later.
Okay.
He made a reed boat in Egyptian style, and he sailed, this curvy Egyptian style boat.
Yeah.
He sailed with that boat from Morocco, I think, and he ended up somewhere in the Yucatan.
It's possible.
On the second try, because at first try they didn't follow this exact curvature. Right. They had no enough tension in both ends of the boat, so the boat was slowly sinking.
So it's not just aesthetic, it's like properly functional.
It's functional, and when they did it, it was successful.
So it's almost as if the aesthetic of Egyptian things are functional.
Weird. But I think he realized that the type of reed they had in Easter Island, that was the same, or maybe even the style they making the boats.
Yeah.
On the Easter Island was the same or similar to the Egyptian.
The reed. I went to Easter Island in the winter. I didn't realize this because I forgot it was upside down. So I thought, oh yes, I'm gonna go. It's gonna be like so hot and tropical Hawaii. No, it was really cold and it was really raining. So I literally went from cold and raining to cold and raining. It looked like England, to be honest. And so a lot of it was anoraks and like, and I was so upset. None of my audio worked because it was so wet and windy. So I had to just, when I made my video, I had to voice over everything because it's just me being like, so I would highly recommend going to Easter Island, but I'd go in the summer, because
But how easy is to get there? You have to fly to Peru?
You fly to Santiago,
not
Chile.
Chile, yeah.
So I was coming from London, so London to Santiago, which is the longest flight British Airways do in the world, which is like 15 hours, and then they only do it twice a week because it's that far, and then Easter Island, Rapa Nui from Chile, they have one flight a day that goes out. It's 5 hours from Chile to there.
But are they synchronized so you can catch the?
No. So you either have to arrive in Chile like 3 or 4 days before the flight, or you can arrive the same morning and you have 1.5 hours to get through out of customs back in, because you have to go out the airport. Because I thought, well, surely it's a transfer, so I can just run. They were like, no. So the Rapa Nui, because it's technically part of Chile, it's treated as a domestic flight, but it's in a different, literally a different building. You've got a different terminal of the airport, sorry. So that's in Terminal 2, you're arriving in. So I had to come out through customs. I wouldn't have made it if I hadn't, the customs line was quite big, and I saw a group of people and was like, sorry, do you speak English? And there was a lovely American guy, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I've lost my tour group, and and I've got to get a flight in like half an hour. And he was like, yeah, come with me. So I jumped the queue, but if I hadn't, I don't think I would have made the flight. And then I ran to the other terminal, and I did make it in the end. But I was lucky because it worked and I got there. But if not, I would have been stuck for 24 hours until the next time. And then we had something on the way back. There was the Rapa Nui airport is the smallest airport in the world. It's tiny. It's like one room. It's like this room size with the plane outside. And there was loads of people there. And we were like, why is it this busy? And they said, oh, because the day before, because it was so rainy and cloudy, that the flight took off from Chile and couldn't land because it literally couldn't see the island. It was so small. And so they flew 5 hours out to the middle, and then they flew 5 hours back, and they didn't go anywhere. It was 10 hours. And so that's why it was so busy, because the people who were supposed to have left the day before. So I would advise, don't do what I did, stupid. And also be prepared that your flight to Rapa Nui might not land, or you might get delayed a day either side. So just like be aware of that.
Cool.
Top tip.
How many days did you spend there?
Only 3. I did 2 days traveling there and 2 days. I spent more days traveling than I did on the ground, but worth it. Like worth it. Yeah. You know the feeling when you see in Egypt, when you like that euphoric kind of buzzy energy feeling when you see the pyramids, and you
especially
kind of,
for the first time.
yeah, you're like, you get like a high off the amazement, but you also get a high off like wherever that ancient site is, because it's on some sort of like woohoo line. So you're plugging into all that stuff like Avery. So the Moai have that effect. The one, there's a famous one called the Famous 15, which is on this like beautiful, you've got Moai Mountain in the background, beautiful untouched lands, like literally no one's built on it in 1,000 years. It's just, and then you've got these Moai, and yeah, it was like you were just running down like, oh my gosh, and it was pretty impressive.
Did you feel this kind of calm when you were there? Because maybe it's just I was tired, but even in the King's Chamber, even in the between the stones in Stonehenge, or sorry, we couldn't go between the stones because it was closed, but we could go in between the stones in Avebury. But all these sites were kind of chilling or calming. I cannot explain. Maybe I was just tired all these times.
Yeah, just like
but it was like, okay, I can just walk there, wander around, but it was like a very, I don't know, calm half an hour. I cannot explain it.
Yeah, I don't feel calm. I feel energized. Yeah, on the sites. They don't like quiet me. It's like, yeah, that's I just feel up. And then but the only weird thing on the site, so I've traveled around a lot. Egypt, traveled Turkey. Whenever we went to the Moai, our phone batteries were draining so fast. The power banks were dying all over the place. One of the guys had his digital camera fully charged, and we went about 15-20 minutes in front of the big 15, and then he went, my camera's just died, it was fully charged. And
was it cold, extremely cold?
Not extremely, it was wet and windy, but it was something that we all was starting to clock that everyone was going, does anyone have a charger? Because my charging bank's died and my camera's died. It's actually, and then someone sent me another paper saying that they've actually set up a testing zone permanently on Rapa Nui for magnetic activity and anomalies, and because there's so much stuff, and apparently it's advised not to fly a helicopter directly over it because it's can cause issues with and also and it's not it's like a fully peer-reviewed scientific. They're studying that island because it's weird stuff happens on the island.
And did they have any results or explanation?
I think it was just from what I read. I didn't read the whole paper, but it was just that it was being established and that was the intentions. And yeah, but they're going to get and keep documenting all of the stuff.
Weird. Do you know about any research around Avebury or the Stonehenge? Similar research?
So the best people to go to for that, I'm going to call out Hugh Newman and Megalithomania, because
I forget to ask this.
He's just a really good resource for definitely all the British stuff. I know that when I went to Avebury, it was on Hugh's tour, and the lady Joanne, forgetting her last name, she's a druid specialist of Avebury, and she was explaining they have done studies on the big rocks there, and they were saying that if you ground yourself to the big rock, they could chart and track positive benefits for 48 hours or a quite extended period of time. Because I remember that she was saying that, and me and Ben from China, we were like, well, might as well, just in case. Give me some of that.
But you have to take your shoes off.
I think you have to ground and get part of it.
Nice.
So,
and when was your last time in Egypt?
Last year. Yeah. Was it last year? Yes, last year I did a March Egypt, October Turkey. There we go. And now I'm like, oh, where do I want to go? I really want to go and see the Azores. That's the islands in the middle of the Atlantic. So I've done a middle of Pacific Ocean, and the Azores, the Azore Plateau, right out from Strait of Gibraltar, and it's the island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Randall has done a lot of work on, because he thinks that's potential ancient Atlantis locations and whatnot. So I'd love to do Azores. I'd love to do Petra, Jordan. And I really want to do the megalithic wall in Montana. So those three are on my...
Have you been to the Scablands?
No, I haven't. No. So add that on Scablands.
And
where are you going next?
Next, me? I don't know yet. Probably Egypt will be another project.
Egypt, yeah.
Because of this scanning project.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to work together with some Egyptian museums.
Great.
To have some real vases with real provenance.
Yeah.
And we are also on the way, kind of, to work together with Egyptian universities.
Nice.
So they are kind of helping us to apply for the Ministry of Antiquities.
Mm-hmm.
Apply for this permit, and after the permit we can start the collaboration with the museums, and also potentially with other sites. Well,
now you've done it at Petrie, it kind of goes, look, we're legit. We didn't break anything.
Yeah, I hope so. Because they were really kind and they are really, really welcoming and comforting. And I think they were also happy that we were there and we were doing this experiment. As I could tell, or that's what I have been noticed, that probably this is the most thorough research on these vases so far, because they were surprised how much equipment we brought.
Yeah, they were like, this is cool. Okay, this is legit. This is a legit operation. And you were doing not just the dynastic vases, you were also doing, which I think is totally fair, doing a version of all the other ones, the pottery, the alabaster.
Yeah, so we did scan. So the focus was the pre-dynastic hardstone vases, mostly Nagada, from the Nagada period, which like roughly 5,000 years old.
Okay.
And also we are focusing on the pottery ones from the same period to compare the several features, circularity, workmanship, etc. Because those were found in the same graves, same tombs, and it's just interesting to see what's the difference. Probably a lot.
Because she said something today about the Petrie publishings, and that's anyone can access that. Is that right?
Petrie Publishing. Ah, yeah, his books, you mean? Or
I always, maybe I just assumed it was online. Maybe it's books. Because I was wondering, like, what's the oldest pre-dynastic bars they have? Because some of them go back further than 5,000.
yeah, it's a little bit tricky question because they have a collection, online collection, where you can look up these vases and you can search for, or you can search based on the period, based on the material, the object type, etc. But you cannot really. So sometimes you find the vase which are not conclusively. I mean, in dating, you can see pre-dynastic and first, third, fourth, or sixth dynasty. So it's like mixed. They don't really know exactly when they were made because you cannot really date the rock.
I saw in a documentary. It was a documentary about Atlantis hunting. I think National Geographic or on Disney. And anyway, this guy had found like not the vase, but more of like a kind of disc plate that was amazingly perfection stone carved, and they brought it up from the bottom of, I think, the Black Sea. So like it was all the way out there, and obviously somebody was taking it somewhere or traveling it, trading it somewhere, and it had like lobbed off, and he spends his time, I think, this diver, and he just finds all these like treasures and stuff at the bottom of the sea. But he found one like there, and it made me go.
But this was a hardstone.
Yeah.
Precision, or looks like.
Yeah, it looked very much like the schist disc.
Okay.
Type stuff, but not as not the there's the schist disc, which is like the weird propeller shape, but then there are other ones which are just more like kind of discs, or
yeah, it's like a ball,
a big, not, but yeah, like a platter, like a plate platter. And he was on this like diver guy had like found it and was like so impressed
in the Black Sea.
In the Black Sea, middle of it.
That's interesting.
And I went, okay. And so yeah, I was wondering, obviously there's a lot found around Egypt, pre-dynastic Egypt, but I'm wondering how far they traveled. So we can definitely put a peg in the Black Sea and go, one was over there.
Yeah, there's another connection to the Black Sea, which I don't know how legit is this connection or this information, but you have been in the Osiris shaft, right?
Yes.
You have seen those two boxes or sarcophagi on the second level.
Yeah, the sticky one.
Sticky one with the black goo, and the other one which is dicite.
Yeah.
And I heard that this dicite, and I'm currently working on a documentation. I'm trying to clarify this information with Egyptian geologists, but I heard that this dicite cannot be mined in this quantity in Egypt.
Yeah, it's got to be brought from some.
Either had to come from the Black Sea region or the Sinai Peninsula.
Maybe they were doing the swaps. I'll give you some the black box and
This is the second time I hear some
from the Black Sea.
Yeah, from this connection. That seems kind of weird.
Well, get your snorkel on, get in the Black Sea, and you're gonna find treasures.
That's actually a dream to dive.
Yeah.
To look under the sea, and
I would not be very good at that. I could do surface level snorkeling, but I couldn't do no. One, claustrophobic.
Oh, that's
so
not
I'd
happening.
probably be like, but also two, medically, I've got bad ears, and I'm technically not supposed to put my head underwater.
Oh.
So
Okay.
not advised. And the pressures, I don't think I can do that pressure thing. I'm not good on a plane either. You know, in a plane when your ears like pressurize, I can't do it. So I'm always having to sit on a plane and I look like I'm just gurning off cocaine because I'm like just trying the whole time to get my ears to equalize and pop. So maybe not. Somebody offered, they were like, oh, I know someone in the Azores who's got a submersive. Like, I bet they could. You could take you down. They could take you down. And I'm like, no, thank you.
You can try these very old diving
Oh,
chambers.
like no one like that. Like you can just walk on the bottom. No, I'd watch someone else go down on a monitor happily, but I'm not going down. That no way. I can actually survive. Pyramids are hard, but I'm okay. You know, going down the tiny 3-foot shafts and descending into.
Have you been to the subterranean chamber?
Yeah.
The...
Yeah. But luckily on our tour, I assume like your tour is private. So there's only sort of 30 people or so. But if it was general, I don't think I could do it general admission where you've got all the people. I'd be like, I'd kick a kid or something. I wouldn't handle it very well.
So it's not even open for the public?
Oh, no, it isn't, is it? It's a private, but just the general pyramids, like those 3-foot by 3-foot shafts that I don't think were like designed for humans to be going in and out of. Yeah, no. So I can handle a pyramid, but anything more underwater or I really struggled in Turkey with the underground city, Derinkuru. Did not cope very well down there. I went in with the idea to vlog and I got sort of the first level and then panicked. So it's even smaller than the pyramid shafts because the staircases are like you can't cross someone at all. So if people are coming down, you then have to back up and people just keep constantly coming down. It's like a nightmare. Mm-hmm. So but really recommend. I mean, go. But yeah, that tested and we only went down, I think it was 4 levels and there are 8 that are open.
Really?
I think he said there are 8 like accessible.
But there are much more.
But then there's like so much more that are not open to the public, and yeah, you get lost. Another, but there's actually randomly about 15 minutes from my house there is this place called the Chislehurst Caves, which is a huge rat run, miles and miles of cave systems. That apparently they think they go, it goes as far back as the Romans, but I'm like, why the Romans? I think we'll be a bit older. If like Scotland and Turkey have this like ancient underground cave system, but I've been down and around, and they're pretty cool. It just goes on for miles and miles, and it's like you'd never know it was there. So 15 minutes from my house.
But do we know the purpose of that and who built those?
It was used different purposes over history. So in the Civil War, it was like a gunpowder reserve, like secret. They stashed all the gunpowder down there. In World War II, it was a city where everybody lived from the bombs. So they focus a lot on that, on the tours going around, being like, and this was the school, and this was the. But they say that like because it goes on and on and on, and they say that they've got evidence of it going back to Roman times.
Sure.
Super cool.
And what's your conclusion on Atlantis? I really want to know what you have.
I think I keep swaying back and forth on my vision of it, which I think is good because it's fluid. But I saw a documentary recently. I think it's on Amazon, and it's called The Atlantis Puzzle, and it was someone just a really good sort of factual documentary, sort of sorting out what is possible versus what there's no evidence for, kind of thing. And they found these ancient boats in North Africa, all across that kind of top chunk of North Africa. And there was the ancient riverways and the big river that used to run. So they've got the Nile going there, and then north in the green period, there was a major river that went all the way across, that went out to tributaries and everything. And they were saying that they found these boats that are like dated to around 9,000 BC that they could travel around and be like not seaworthy, but anyway, this documentary was really good. And they were saying that they think that the idea of Atlantis probably came from this culture around that time that could travel up and down and around the rivers, I guess like we do with highways and cars now, and that they are saying that there was areas around there which fit the Eye of the Sahara, but not in the way they actually. The documentary threw a little bit of shade on particular people who have been promoting the Eye of the Sahara as Atlantis, because the guy who first came up with the theory of it, I'd never heard of, and he was the one that actually went and visited, I think, in the 90s or early 2000s, and he was saying that he thinks that it aligns with that area. If it was the rivers basically would run down to it, and he thinks that there was like a base there and it would fit the story. So I think that the idea of Atlantis, there's kernels of truth in there, of this like memory of a previous civilization / group of people who were in that corner of the world, who had potentially artifacts that then filter down.
Or skills.
And skill, yeah, well, artifacts that show skills that kind of don't fit with what we understand of like written history people. But yeah, but I keep swaying between whether it was out in the Azores or whether it was in sort of that North Africa, south of Spain, or probably all of them.
But did your perspective changed during your research?
Yeah, well, first I was really convinced about that. I was like, in 2020, I was like, it's the Eye of the Sahara. And then I watched 10 hours of Randall stuff and was like, no, it's the Azores. And then kind of going, maybe it's in Spain. But I think that it's the whole area. This documentary really goes into, you know, in the text when it says the area of Atlantis is equal to Asia and Libya and Asia Minor combined. They drew out the area of North Africa when it was split up into these sort of like areas with all the rivers running through, all the areas that you could access. And actually that whole block of land does equal roughly the size of Libya and Asia Minor combined. And so I do think that whole area, and in the text it says things like there were 10 kingdoms and 10 kings, and Atlantis isn't one place or one city. It's more of the
region.
Yeah, like a region. It's a slice of pie in the world, and community. That's maybe the word I'm looking for. We say civilization, people go, no, it's not a civilization. Maybe it's a community of people.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, there's still not a lot of and as well, I'm sorry, it's been a long day. But in this documentary they were talking about how a very good argument that the Strait of Gibraltar isn't the modern day Strait of Gibraltar, because a lot of the Atlantis hunting really the only real like direction it says is it's straight out from the Strait of Gibraltar. And they were showing a very good argument for it actually being in North Africa. Trying to think of so where you've got the Mediterranean Sea.
Yes.
And I need to get up a map and then we can show people what I'm talking about. But in the documentary they were saying that there was actually a strait that when North Africa was wet and had all these rivers, there was a strait that appears, I'm gonna say kind of Tunisia corner, and they were saying that makes
it's underwater, or
it's not. It's dried out now.
What's dried out?
So the rivers are gone. Like the main river across, it's all Sahara. Okay. So it's not that it's sunk. quite the opposite. It's that all these places dried out rather than
the
dissipate under the
original story.
Yeah. Because it doesn't say sunk. It says
Disappeared.
it says like disappeared into the sea, or the wording is interesting. Yeah.
Depends on the translation.
It depends on the translation, yeah. But the Atlantis puzzle, I'm really butchering the set of it, but I found it so interesting. I need to rewatch it just to get all the information. But they were basically showing strong evidence of the Strait of Gibraltar being in possibly another location, and it's not the modern day one. And they gave the reasonings for why, and strong arguments of saying why that whole block of North Africa would have been super accessible by boat, and it, right up to the Eye of the Sahara, Mauritania.
They could also seafare quite easily.
Well, the Norwegian guy did it.
Long distances, yeah, and the Norwegian guy did it, and also Luke Evans talked about this.
I think Luke Evans did it. I was like, did he? When did he seafare? That's how he got to Egypt.
No, he talked about this statue, which kind of, I think he thinks it's supposed to be the people from that region who sailed down to the Yucatan or
Yeah.
South American or Central American area, because those people never had beard or
Yeah, the
I
beard
think-
and the...
beard, and also this special Turkish style hairdress, the turban, and there is a statue depicting this
Well,
person.
We've shown from Easter Island, from Rapa Nui, that they can travel an object from the megalithic stone and also the original Moai. So not only can a design travel 3,000 miles, but also artifacts can be shared. So if that's possible, so that's made me go, okay, we've got evidence of something being moved from one half of the world to the other half, information shared, designs replicated. What if then you could like extrapolate that back and be like, okay, well then what if that happened? You can sort of edge it around the world if it's done half of it to there. And again, with the South America also joining in the mix of the Rapa Nui culture. I just watched as well, I didn't know it existed until I went to East Island. There's a movie called Rapa Nui, which was made in 1994 and produced by Kevin Costner. He did it after Robin Hood, his like next big movie. He's not in it because he's not part of the story, but he produced it. And it's this like action adventure movie about the rivalries between these two clans on Rapa Nui, and about how they were like in competition to build the Moai, and it's quite good.
Is it aligned with the traditional story, or?
Mm-hmm. It was they worked like really closely with the people of Rapa Nui to try and bring the like ancient stories, but this was more set at the end of the Rapa Nui period, a couple decades before the Europeans arrived, because the Rapa Nui people, the different clans were warring a lot, which I did bring up to just to jump back to Easter Island again, I did bring that up to the tour guides. I was like, so as a society, you produced over nearly 1,000 Moai, and you could produce them like on a production line, and you could move them to these sites, and yet you fought with each other all the time. So how did you? But you
organize this big work,
but you all came together, and I was like, was it different clans making different Moais? And he was like, no, and I was like, that's very weird. That you could be like, this is my land, don't cross my land. Can you help me move this Moai? Yeah, sure, mate, sure. And I was like,
maybe on the weekends they were fighting, on the weekdays they were building.
It was like tools down, now we fight. But the Rapa Nui movie was like surprisingly, I enjoyed it.
I have to watch it.
Yeah, and it was I'd never heard of it until I went to Easter Island, and they play it every night in a bar there. They like project it there. They don't have a cinema, because I asked, I was like, is there a cinema on the island? They're like, no, they have to fly to Chile to go to the cinema.
Oh.
Yeah, so
But they have a nice view.
It's expensive, but they do have a nice view. But yeah, so recommend Rapa Nui movie, Kevin Costner.
What about this chicken story? There's a chicken DNA thing which is not quite clear.
Oh, there's chicken. The chicken DNA is also South American.
So the chicken there came from, at least based on the DNA test, they came from South.
They've now got chicken DNA linking them to South America. They've got sweet potatoes.
But can it be later?
What, the chicken DNA?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean that.
I don't know, but now, I mean, chicken and sweet potatoes aside, they now have it in the people with the human DNA. So
yeah. More important. More interesting.
What is the plan and the goal and the dream for the Vase project? And
so the vases will be analyzed. So I'm working together with Adam Young, and we have another analyst in the team. Yeah, we are planning on analyzing all of these scans, but it takes time. So maybe we need a few weeks to have a complete report. But when we have this complete report, it will be probably published. I want to communicate this with the Petrie Museum, maybe have a joint publication with them.
Like a peer-reviewed?
Yeah, that would be nice. That's the plan.
Mic drop.
That's my plan, but I don't know if they would be into it, so we will have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And yes, this is all about data collection. So we want to collect more and more data to have a conclusive, I don't know, opinion or like a conclusion, basically. And we go to Egypt. That's the ultimate plan or goal, to analyze those vases there. And I also have a plan in Italy, Turin.
Nice.
Where they have also a nice collection. So data collection as much as we can, and we will see. Maybe we can found worse and better vases, but eventually we will have some.
You'll find the perfect one as well. The OG. They're like, oh.
Yeah, that's interesting. If we can find a similar precise one somewhere, because not all of these are precise. It looks precise, but it's not all of these. So I think you have seen a few small ones today. Maybe those are even not that precise as you would think.
Oh, they not. They look pretty. Maybe because they were small, I thought they were more impressed.
It's very impressive that they made these very symmetrical things from hard stone in a small size, but they can be handmade. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's precise. But the data will say the truth, basically. Yeah. It will tell the truth, and we will see.
Well, thank you very much, because you popped into my inbox maybe a year ago, maybe?
Yeah, it was just before the Egypt trip. I think it was February or something like that.
Okay, so a long time ago. And you're like, hey, do you want to go to the Petrie Museum and look at stuff? I'm like, yes, thank you.
Because I knew that you are living here.
Yeah.
And you are interested in this stuff.
Yeah, local, as they say. Just local. So,
and I thought it would be a fun adventure.
Yeah, thank you. It really was. So now I want to go back and just research everything in the Petrie Museum.
Have you been there before?
I think I've been there, but only when I was a kid.
Okay.
Because I don't think I've been there as an adult, for sure.
But it's a really interesting museum. They have a lot of things. A lot of things.
Agreed. And they have a dead guy in a pot.
Pot.
So
poor, but he's restored. I think his chest or the bones are restored.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. It's really hard to end, isn't it? Like when you're ending a podcast, I don't know how to end them. I'm always like, well, live long and prosper.
Well.
Tally-ho.
Where my audience can find you?
Oh, at Funny Old World. Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. So.
You're on TikTok, YouTube?
Yeah, everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Not Twitter. I deleted that. I got bored.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I think you love your drink.
Love it so much. Woo. Don't even want like half a Guinness.
A massive thank you to my incredible supporters: Oniko, Oannes, Sarah Cox, Vasana, and Seven Ring. Your generosity fuels this journey into ancient technology, keeping this show alive and pushing my research further than ever. As the ancient Egyptians would say, Ankh Veja Seneb.